back, everybody. Seth and Sean Sports Radio here on StreamYard. Yeah, there we go. We're back to where we need to be. I'm Sean Palmer.
Where we need to be is Atlanta, correct?
Yeah. Well, no, I meant I'm up there and you're over there. So
I thought you should have started this off with Motley Crue's "Home Sweet Home." I feel like that would have been comfortable.
Somebody asked me today, where is home? And I really have no idea. I say I'm a New Yorker that lives in Atlanta, and I think that that's the best way to describe it, at least for this point. But welcome back to the show, everybody. We have tennis to talk about today, which is
tennis,
more tennis than we've talked about in the last 3 shows that we've probably done in the last 11 years. We got Aaron Judge making what is basically the free agent bonanza of Joe Flacco look petty.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that in a little bit. But first of all, give it up for my Syracuse Orangemen who go 3-0 on a last 7-second touchdown against Purdue, where they had absolutely no reason to be in that game whatsoever. And on the flip side, Saturday was just a warm-up for my Sunday, where the Jets pulled off the 99.9% percentage of them losing with a minute left in the game. Yeah, Joe. Joey Flacco, baby. That will not be my next jersey at all. No, absolutely not.
You know why he's smiling?
Because we won, baby.
Because he made $120 million to do absolutely nothing.
Look, he won a Super Bowl. But we'll get to that.
He got the contract after the Super Bowl, though.
Correct. So we'll get to that in a second, because that is a good bet on yourself moment that we can compare with Aaron Judge, right? And there are lots of people that are doing that now, Kirk Cousins, Lamar Jackson, etc. But we'll get to that in a second. First, let's talk about the retirement of – I don't even know where to put him. He's on the Rushmore, right, of tennis?
Yeah, I would think so. But the funny thing is, he's not the best of his era. It's a weird place.
Is he not the best of his era? Is he?
No.
Well, the thing is, does Federer? So we're talking about Roger Federer, who announced
playing his last match on Friday.
Yeah, and he announced his retirement. And Serena said, "I wasn't looking forward to sharing this with you." And so funny there, but. Does Federer belong? You said he's not the best of this era. Does he really belong in this era, or the era? Does he span 2 eras, or is he situated in this one?
It depends what you define as an era. I mean, from 2005 to 2012, 10, he was the most dominant player we've ever seen.
So that's 5 years.
7 years. I mean, he's been a consistent threat for 15. I think in 5 was when he won his first. I'm going to look it up quickly. The problem is he's going to go down on the Rushmore as the most beloved player of all time. I think he's the most beloved men's player of all time. I think, Agassi was loved, but he was hated.
Sampras was loved.
Sampras, nobody cared. Sampras wasn't interesting.
Connors was loved.
No, Connors was hated. Connors was loved at the end.
Okay.
When he ran his run at the Open. McEnroe was not liked.
Arthur Ashe, Rod Laver.
You're talking 40 years ago, 50 years ago.
Arthur
Ashe was beloved as a statesman.
And you could make the point that Arthur Ashe actually wasn't loved because he was black at the time, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I think he was beloved as a statesman and as a humanitarian more than as a tennis player.
Okay, and
Rod Laver was loved as a player. But Roger Federer, so the way I look at it is, and Sean knows this, I'm actually a tennis fan, a pretty big one. Djokovic is going to go down probably as the best. Nadal is going to go down as the toughest. Federer is going to go down as the most beloved. Because he had the most elegant, beautiful game to watch of anyone I've ever seen in tennis. His game was magnificent.
So let me parse this out a little bit more. So we have guys that are better on one surface than another, right? So Nadal is the clay master, right?
Yes.
I mean, Nadal, I believe Jim Courier won a bunch at the French Open. See, here I am pulling out Jim Courier. And
That's impressive, yeah.
Yeah. And Boris Becker was the grass champion, right? I mean, at Wimbledon. So can you parse them out differently that way? In that Nadal was the clay guy. Who was the hardcore guy? That's Sampras, right? It's got to be.
The problem is Sampras couldn't have played with. I don't think Sampras could have played with these guys.
Okay.
I just think Sampras was amazing, but Sampras's game was closer to Federer than to either Djokovic or Nadal.
Right. Djokovic and Agassi look similar in games.
Or Nadal. It's a much more grinding game that they played. They didn't come to net very often.
They were a power game.
Right. So, I mean, to me, I look at it as Nadal's won 11 Frenches, 12 Frenches, something like that.
Yeah, he's unbeatable on clay.
Yeah, his record is absurd. So he's the best clay court player of all time. He's also won the two big championships twice. All three championships, other majors twice. Australia, the U.S. Open, and Wimbledon.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about different surfaces, the Grand Slams, Australian and U.S. are played on hard court.
Yes.
Wimbledon is played on grass, and the French Open is played on clay. So when we talk about championships and Nadal is the best clay player ever, we're looking at the wins that he had on clay, which would be the French Open. For those that do not understand tennis, and there are a lot of you, and quite frankly, I'm not the biggest tennis guy. I watched Federer's last match. I watched Serena's last match. I'll watch the important matches. I'll watch when Americans are in tennis in the Olympics. But I'm not a guy that's going to watch a first round U.S. Open match.
That's me.
Right, exactly.
So, look, you can put Bjorn Borg up there for the U.S. for Wimbledon, along with Sampras and along with Federer. You can put Ivan Lendl up there on the hard court because he won, I think, 4 U.S. Opens in a row with Djokovic. We're trying to think. And Nadal, I'm just looking at the stats. So Nadal's won 4 U.S. Opens, 2 Wimbledon, 2 Australians, and 8 zillion Australians. To argue between the three is extraordinarily difficult.
Yeah.
Because when Djokovic came in 3 to 4 years after Nadal. His prime was after Nadal's and after Federer's. So I'm not going to say he's been in an era to himself because Nadal has been right there with him the last few years.
Right, they overlap. They overlap a bit.
But they're primes. So to give you an idea, I'm looking. So Federer won his first in 2003. Nadal won his first major in 2005. Djokovic won 1 in 2008, but won 3 of them. It really became in 2011. So we're talking about 5-6 year differential. So, and there hasn't been anybody. I mean, think about it. Federer's 41. Nadal's got to be 37, 38, close to 40. And Djokovic is 34, 35. But his career, his ascension started later on. And look, between the 3 of them and Andy Murray, that's 95%. I don't even know what the percentage is, but of the people who've won majors since 2010, 2011, I think they've won 95%.
You mean it's like the Pelicans, Rockets, and Utah Jazz first-round picks over the next 3 years? Is that they have like 85% of all first-round picks?
There you go. So now the question is whether they're going to be able to use them correctly.
Right. So, okay. So if you're putting a Mount Rushmore, which we talk about a lot, which is four faces on this mountain, you're putting three from one era, which seems a
I don't
lot.
I don't think you can.
Right. That's what I was saying. That seems to be a lot.
It is. It's an impossible in tennis. I think the three were so far and above beyond everybody else. But I don't think you can. I don't know how you do it. Look, you go back to the '60s. I'm not going back to the '50s.
To Don Hudson.
I'm not going back to Don Budge.
Come on. I was going to pull Don Budge, and you were going to smile because I knew who Don Budge was.
Yeah, Don Budge won the 38 U.S. Open, beat Gottfried van Kram, I believe.
First Grand Slam, baby. He won the first Grand Slam.
So going back to Laver won 2 Grand Slams, but there weren't professionals in some of them when he won his first one, some of the championships. I think if you said the 4 best players of all time, not in comparison to their eras, yeah, you probably have these 3 there. But I don't think you can do that. I think you have to compare it as dominance to your era. I don't know who's been more dominant in their era, to be perfectly honest, because these 4 majors have been going on for 30, 40, 50 years in the same realm, as opposed to when there's a certain point where amateurs played. Name a sport. As great as McEnroe was, he won 9 or 10. Bjorn Borg retired at 25. Won 5 Wimbledons, but didn't. Sampras won 14. That was the high. That was the peak. That was the most Grand Slams of all time. That has been decimated by the 3 of these guys. Djokovic is going to end up with somewhere between 25 and 30. If Nadal had stayed healthy the last 2 years, he would probably be somewhere around 24, 25. It is absurd how good they've been.
Yeah, but is that so you compare them to an era, and I get that, right? So you have these, but if you, and this is just argumentative. I'm not trying to say you're wrong.
No, it's fine. It's a brutal discussion.
If you have, let's say, quality is 1 to 10, right, and everybody else is at a 7, 1 being the highest, 10 being the lowest. If everybody's at a 7, and Djokovic and Nadal are at a 4 for your era, you're obviously going to beat everybody that's a 7. But if you have, is Nadal a 4, or are they a 1 when you could possibly say that the competition was better in the 80s or the 90s, in which it meant that the better players were better, right? Because if the standard is, it's kind of what we say with war, right? Wins against average replacement.
Okay, I wasn't sure where you were going with war.
Going that the average player is worse. So if the average player is worse, then the best player can be worse than a different era, because you're beating up on the worst player. And I'm not saying that's the case, but it might very well be, because aside from Djokovic and Nadal and maybe Andy Murray, who else is there? There isn't the average player.
Well, there are a lot of the average players.
Right, but that's my point. There are no middle players, right? There's no better than average players.
The problem is they just weren't better than 3 of the 5 to 6 greatest players of all time. Stan Wawrinka won. The only other one I can think of in this era, who's won more than 1 or 2, is Stan Wawrinka, who I think won 3 or 4 Grand Slams. His body gave out, but he was was incredible. But in all of these, and you go back to the 80s, and you had, McEnroe was the best of the early 80s. Borg was the best of the late 70s. Lendl was the best of the mid to late 80s.
Yeah, Lendl is lost, by the way, in all of this.
Right, because he showed no personality. He was a machine. But you look at all these. Yeah, there were people, like for every Lendl, there was a Mats Wilander or a Stefan Edberg.
Right. Yep.
Michael Chang coming from nowhere.
Correct. This is what I was talking about, right?
Yeah.
And you have a Boris Becker, too.
Boris Becker was more the late 80s. Yeah, the late 80s, early 90s.
But I'm saying you had those guys that would win 3 or 4 Grand Slams, right?
Right.
They're not 12.
And here because all of these guys, Sampras never got. I don't think Sampras ever went to the finals at the French.
No.
Let alone won one. Lendl never won the French. He should have, considering his strokes. Never won the French. That was the big issue with him and with Michael Chang beating him. McEnroe never won the French. Connors, I don't know if Connors has a career Grand Slam. I don't think so. Agassi did. Now Agassi won. Agassi did win the career Grand Slam.
Yes.
And it was honestly, to some degree, some of the flukiest stuff on the face of the earth, because he won some of these not in his prime, which is what's so
he also came down from 2-0. It was
against Andre Medvedev in the French.
1-6, 2-6, 6-4, 6-3, 6-4. Yep. So basically, it was a war of attrition. It wasn't even a war of.
Well, that's what the French Open typically is. When you look at if you look at the players who've won the French Open over the years, they're the most obscure tennis players as winners, as opposed to the U.S. Open.
So here's some guys. So after Bjork won, by the way, 4 in a row.
On the French or won Wimbledon?
78 to 81, he won the French.
Okay.
Yeah, Nylander, Yannick Noah, who I believe was the last French guy to win the French, right? Lendl won it 3 years.
Lendl won the French 3 years in a row?
Yeah. Yep. No, not in a row.
Lendl,
3 times.
There was something Lendl didn't win. Maybe it was Wimbledon.
Vilander won it 3 years.
Yeah, Vilander was amazing.
Michael Chang won it.
On clay, excuse me.
Andre Gomez won it. Andre Gomez beat Agassi. Then Courier beat Agassi.
The great story with Andre Gomez was Agassi had a hairpiece on.
What?
True story. He was afraid to move in certain positions because he was afraid his hairpiece was going to fall in the finals of the French Open.
Jim Courier won it back-to-back. Then Sergei Bruguera won it back-to-back.
Yep, from Spain. Now you're going to start to get some of the obscure guys.
Thomas Muster.
Yep.
Yevgeny Kafelnikov.
Sergei Bruguera.
No, we had Bruguera. Bruguera was 2 years earlier. Gustavo Kuerten.
Guga. I love Guga.
Carlos Moya.
Yep.
Then Agassi. Then Kuerten won it twice in a row. So Kuerten won 3.
We're around 2000 now, right? Give or take.
Yep. Then you have back-to-back Spaniards with Albert Costa and Juan Carlos Ferrero.
Yep.
Gaston Guadido, who I've never heard of.
Gaston Gaudio, yeah.
And he beat – so there was – both players were Argentinian that year. There was Guillermo Correa.
Guillermo Correa?
Yeah. Then you had Nadal for 4 years, Federer for 1, Nadal for 5 years, Stan Wawrinka, Djokovic, Nadal for 4 years, Djokovic, and then Nadal again.
Yeah, Nadal's won 14 French Opens. I mean,
but he has 23 Grand Slams?
22.
Okay,
so he's won 2 of the. He's won 2 on each of the others.
But here's my point to you, right? Where you're trying to say that I don't think Sampras, who I believe had 20, he had like 18.
Sampras at 14.
14. I don't think any of the other guys had a percentage like this.
No, none of them did.
Right? They didn't have a percentage of 60% of your wins were on one surface.
No, probably not.
Right? So that...
Well, 60% of your Grand Slams you're talking about? 60%.
Yeah, 60% of your Grand Slams.
Wait a minute. No. You go to Sampras.
Yeah.
Sampras probably won 50% of his on Wimbledon. I'm going to guess here. 6 or 7 at Wimbledon, 5, maybe 4 or 5 at the U.S. Open, and 1 or 2 at Australia.
So let's take.
I'm guessing. I don't know the exact. So
he won a U.S. Open. He won a Wimbledon. He won a U.S. Open. He won an Australia Open. He won a Wimbledon, a U.S. Open, and an Australia Open. You're right. He won 4 consecutive Wimbledon. So he won 7 at Wimbledon. He won 8 at the. No, these are losses. Sorry. They're in different colors. Right. No. Hold on. To be fair, it's in green in one part of it and blue in the other. So I'm not sure whether he won or lost. So I had to look that up. So he has
won 7 Wimbledons, 5 U.S. Opens, and 2 Australians, which is I think is exactly what I just said.
It is. So he never won a French.
No, he never made a final of a French.
So,
but the thing is, yeah. So let's go back. Here is the rationale for both of them over Federer. Nadal won 2 of each. Forget he won 14. He beat Roger Federer at a Wimbledon final in possibly the greatest match of all time.
Okay.
He's beaten Djokovic at Australia at their strengths. Federer won 1 French. I don't believe he did not play Nadal. He did not beat Nadal. He's never beaten Nadal in the French.
Okay.
So, yes, it is heavily accentuated towards the
towards the
French. But he won championships over these players on their best services which Federer did not do. Now, Djokovic, I believe, has beaten Federer at Wimbledon. Sure. I'm not sure if he did.
Well, I haven't gotten up Djokovic because I can't spell his name. So
Djokovic.
There we go. Got it. Okay, so Djokovic. There we go. I love the internet. Gotta scroll all the way down. There we go. Okay, so it's a long list. What were we looking for? Which one?
Djokovic beat Federer at Wimbledon. Yes, he did. 2014 and 2015.
Okay.
So, and 2019. Okay. So, I mean, I think because of this. Now, I don't know. Did Djokovic beat? I think that Djokovic has beaten Nadal once at the French. I know Nadal's beaten Djokovic on hard court
and at Wimbledon.
Yeah, but Nadal's not a grass court player.
True. He beat him in Australia. He lost the French to him there. No, he didn't beat him in the French.
Okay, so or at least not in the finals. So that is my argument for Nadal. I don't think Djokovic can. I think Djokovic is not particularly well liked. I don't think he.
Well, the whole vaccine thing certainly did not help.
He wasn't well liked before then.
I understand, but I'm saying it did not help.
It did not help. But look, Canada's going to start letting people in.
No. Look, we're not talking politically, but the way
I get it. I'm saying going forward, it's not going to be an issue. I don't believe at any of the majors.
It's not going to be an issue in any sport going forward. And for all those people that talked about the trade deadline and Whit Merrifield not being able to play in Canada or anybody else for that matter, it's not going to matter.
Well, so I'm also not going to pull the Kyrie Irving and say it's one of the biggest human rights scandals in history.
No, of course not.
You saw that on Twitter yesterday?
No, he did what?
He claims that the what do you call it? That the COVID vaccine is one of the biggest human rights scandals of all in the world history.
Okay, I don't know how to respond to any of this anymore.
I just don't even bother. What are you going to say?
Not much. I just don't have responses.
Nope.
So anyway, so the fact is, look, if you're putting 4 on there, you're obviously putting Nadal. You just said it, right? You're putting Nadal. Yeah. You're not putting Djokovic on there because he hasn't, or are you?
Well, look, if I'm going to put the 4 greatest players of all time, I don't know how you don't put the 3 of them on there, as terrible as it sounds. The 4th one would probably be Rod Laver. I find it awkward. I do. But they each won 20 Grand Slams. No one else has over 13. I don't know how you can take any of the 3 off. If I had to have one guy to win a match, I would take Nadal. I think if he's healthy, he's just his grittiness is just unbelievable. Federer was the most elegant player I've ever seen. He's the most beautiful player to watch I've ever seen. And people who think he's the greatest of all time, I don't know how you really argue it, but I think, again, my opinion would be, I think it's Nadal. I think he's the lead. I think of the three, he's going to be. If we had a voting of those three and who's the best of all of them, I think he would become third. I think that's where he would come in, because Djokovic is going to end up surpassing everybody and be at like 25 or 26 Grand Slams by the time he's done. Nadal, I don't think has. I mean, look, Nadal, I don't know if he has anything left, and he still won 2 majors this year.
Yeah. And his body is completely breaking
His body's
down.
been complete hell for 3 years, and he's still.
Well, and that's why Federer left, right? Because it's not that Federer doesn't want to play; it's that his body's breaking down, and it's not going to work. And truth be told, Federer's 40 years old, and at 40, your body breaks down. I mean,
I wouldn't know. Mine is a temple.
Right, exactly. I mean, but it again goes to show you how impressive guys like Tom Brady are, and how guys like, look, you could say Udonis Haslem hasn't played 16 minutes in a year.
Udonis Haslem hasn't played since the big 3 in 2010.
But you know what? He's still busting his hump. Like,
God bless him. I wish I had that opportunity. He'll
but
be there
that's
till
what I'm
he's
saying,
55.
right? But that's what I'm saying, right? So even if you're 40 years old, like Andrew Whitworth at 38 last year and taking all that pounding, right? I mean, it is impressive when you can play at a level that is in a professional sport at the age of 40 or even 35. Like, your body is supposed to break down, and it just doesn't unless your name is Barry Bonds and you're juicing, which I want no
I guess is that how we're transitioning to the Aaron Judge discussion?
Well, I don't think Aaron Judge is juicing.
No, I don't think anyone thinks Aaron Judge is juicing.
No, and I think that's probably the best part about it. Like, I think the best part about Aaron Judge, and I've said it on the show, and I've said it to many a Yankee fan, I don't think Aaron Judge will be back next year.
Right, you think he's going to be with the Giants?
I think he'll be with San Francisco. And wouldn't it be ironic if he's in San Francisco and they trade for Shea Ohtani to play in New York, which actually would be a great trade baseball-wise for the Yankees, because the Yankees could always use more pitching since they traded away Jordan Montgomery, which still boggles my mind that they traded him away. But anyway, let's put it this way. Aaron Judge may have the best walk year ever. Let's compare something. May.
He's gonna win the freaking Triple Crown.
No, he won't. No, he won't.
He's 1 point behind in the batting average.
He will not win the Triple Crown.
He has a very good chance of winning the Triple Crown.
See, and I don't think he's going to be pitched to very much the rest of the year.
He may not have to be.
Well, if he's walked, then he's not going to be able to improve his average.
He may not have to.
Is he leading?
He's currently leading in the batting average. He's at 316.
Who's second?
There's Xander Bogaerts is 315, and the guy from Minnesota is 314. I'm not saying it's a gimme, but he's certainly right there. He's leading the damn thing.
So I just want to point this out. So of the stats that Aaron Judge, so I just went to Major League Baseball batting leaders on Baseball Reference. Aaron Judge is leading in WAR. He's leading in offensive WAR. He's leading in on-base percentage. He's leading in slugging percentage. He's leading in on-base plus slugging percentage. Well, that makes sense because he's 1-1. Runs scored, total bases, home runs, RBIs, adjusted OPS, runs created, adjust batting runs, adjust batting wins, extra base hits, offensive win percentage.
Can you spell 350 million? Because I'm getting the feeling that's where someone's going to be spelling.
Over how many years? It doesn't matter the 350. We saw that with Juan Soto, right? Remember, Aaron Judge is 30 years old.
I was going to say 8 years.
You want 350 over 8 years?
What did he turn down? He turned down 250.
Right, but that was
over 7.
250.
So that's
over
33
No, he
million
didn't.
a year.
Was it 250? I thought it was 210 over 7.
Okay, so let's say it's 210. So he's turning down $30 million.
Correct. And if you want to
He's
give him
going to be at a minimum
35,
No. What I'm saying is, at a minimum, I assume you concede he's going to win the home runs and the RBIs.
sure. Look, he's going to be the best offensive player in baseball, whether or not he wins the Triple Crown or not.
Yes.
Okay? I concede that. He is the best offensive player in
He
baseball.
is a
And he plays center field.
Yeah, and he's a good fielder and a good athlete. And
Yeah, but he won't play center field. He won't play
he's
center
not
field.
going to play center field in Pac-Bell.
No.
But he's fine. He's not a center fielder by trade anyway. He's played left for most of his time, or right for most of his time.
So if he makes 35 for 8, that's 280.
I think he's going to get more than that.
If you give him 40 for 8, you're at 320. You think he's going to get $45 million?
I think someone's going to fucking bust. Oh, whoops. Sorry,
You think he's going to get $44 million a year?
I would not be shocked. I also wouldn't be shocked if it was 35. It was 350 to be fair, over 10. So
he will not get to 40 years old.
He's in the American League. He can be, if it's in the American League, he can be a DH.
No, in both leagues he can be.
Both leagues. Yeah, I forgot. It's baseball. It's all bullshit. It's all, they got rid of. Yeah. I mean, I don't think
much
he
to
should.
my chagrin, by the way. But anyway,
What'd you say?
Much to my chagrin, as you know.
I understand. Look, I don't think he should get this. But look at the threshold you're getting. Look at what he.
So right now, no. But here's my take on this. What's the highest salary in baseball right now?
I believe it's Trout, isn't it?
No, it's Scherzer.
41 million a year.
43 million a year for 3 years. Right?
Yes.
Trout,
he's a pitcher and he's 37 years old.
I get that. What I'm saying is, you're saying that he is going to get more than that for 8 years.
I'm not saying I would do it. I'm saying that's what I think he's going to get.
So Mike Trout got $426 million.
Over how many? 10?
Over, I believe it was 12.
Okay, so that's 36 million a year, give or take.
Right. So you're jumping $9 million a year.
I'm not
No. Your prediction is somebody is going to jump.
Someone's going to do
$9 million a year and crush the ceiling on that.
Well, what do you think? Juan Soto's got what, a year to go before he?
2.
Okay. Where do you think he's going to be?
I think he'll. But there's a difference between Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is starting at 30 years old, and Juan Soto is starting at 26.
I thought Aaron Judge was crazy to turn down 210 over 7.
Do you still think he's crazy?
Well, not based on this year.
I'm just making sure.
What do you think he's going to get?
Look,
I mean,
if
we're starting at 30 million. He's turning down 30 million. He's certainly not going below that off this year.
No. So Trout's making 426 over 14, right? So he's making 426 divided by 14. So he's making 12. Sorry, 426 divided by 12. He's making 35 and a half. Okay, that's what Mike Trout is. Mike Trout is already, I will tell you flat out, I'm not saying they're regretting the deal, but they're certainly not getting the full value of this deal, right? So his deal ends at 38 years old. So let's say that Judge makes a little bit more. So he makes 36 million. And over 8 years ends at the same time. Okay? That is $288 million over 8 years. Do I think he'll get a 9th year? Yeah, I think he probably will get another year. So let's add another 36.
Wait,
so that's 9 years and 324.
Okay.
Do I think they'll round up to 325? Probably. So 9 years and 325. So he beats Trout, right? He gets the highest paid for a position player. He gets 9 years where he's going to end at 39 years old. But there's no way he's beating the 3-year term of Max Scherzer, which I think will also be equaled or close to by Jake DeGrom this year. I think Jake DeGrom is going to get 3 years and like $43 million as well by the Mets, by the way. Or he'll get a 7-year and $35 million year contract.
He's not getting 7 years. How the hell do you give DeGrom 7 years? He hasn't pitched a full season. He hasn't pitched a combined full season out of 3 years.
Dude, I know. But I just said, how do you give Jake DeGrom, how do you give Aaron Judge 9 years?
I wouldn't do it. But the problem is, what do the Yankees do now?
They go get Shohei Ohtani. By the way,
Right.
The difference is, hold on. The difference is also, DeGrom's going to get a 3-year deal. And the reasoning is, DeGrom is 35 years old. They're not giving Jake DeGrom nobody's giving a pitcher a 7-year deal or even a 6-year deal when you're starting at 35. I forgot that he was old at that point. I think they trade for Shohei Ohtani or they go down the path of getting another player. I don't think Judge comes back. And if he doesn't come back,
you said that all along.
And then what do you do? So if you look at the 2022 baseball free agents, hold on. Next class. So you got Verlander, who I don't think comes to New York because I don't think he's going to want to come to New York, right? If you're looking at the hitters, Jose Abreu, that doesn't do anything for me, right? How about Wilson Contreras? I could see as the catcher.
The problem is what you're talking about are nice play. Look, Wilson Contreras.
Right, you're really not replacing him.
Right. So the issue you have is if you don't replace him, you are looking at a 500 team. Agreed?
The only replacements that you can have for him would be Carlos Correa at shortstop if he opts out in Minnesota. You could get Xander Bogaerts, but I still don't think that's a replacement. Correa is a replacement. Correa could be.
Bogaerts is not going to the Yankees.
Or
he's been the captain of the Red Sox for the last 5 years.
Please, Johnny Damon and Wade Boggs, talk to me again. I don't even want to hear it. Or Jacoby Ellsbury. Like, you want to talk about Red Sox that came to Yankees.
Yeah, no, I also think Bogaerts is more kind of the Boston fabric. I would never have seen Jason Varitek going to the Yankees.
No, I think that's true. But the Yankees could shift and say, okay, we're gonna take a bunch of pitchers and go that route, right? And we're gonna go, but that route is Jacob DeGrom, Mike Clevenger, both injury prone.
No,
Clayton Kershaw's not going anywhere.
No,
right? Carlos Rodon, who is a good pitcher, but not a great pitcher.
Yeah.
Chris Sale, not going anywhere. Justin Verlander is going to opt out, but probably re-sign, and he's 40 years old. Or T1 Walker. That's it. That's what you got. So
I think they have a huge problem. I do. I'm not as convinced as you are that he's gone, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised by it. I also wouldn't be surprised that the Yankees made the biggest offer and he said, look, I want to go and decided against it. Although the union would crush him on it.
I don't think for any reason, I don't think he stays in New York. It may be for the reason you say, or maybe they just don't want to pay him. I don't think he's back in pinstripes next year. It could be for either one of those reasons.
Yeah.
Because he said it himself.
Sure he's in New York. Look, I'm not sure he's a New York guy.
But come on. What's a New York guy?
There are people who love being in New York.
Correct. But when
I don't know if he's one of those people. I'm not saying that is a good thing or a bad thing.
No, but when I'm saying a New York guy, when I talk about being a New York guy when it comes to sports, is can you play in New York?
Oh, yeah, he's certainly
right.
That's not an issue.
Right. He's not Ed Whitson, and he's not Kevin Brown, and he's not the guys that can't – Frankie Monteros, I'll put in there.
Frankie Monteros.
Right.
That's a problem.
Right? But he's not a guy that can't play in New York. He may just not be a guy that wants to play in New York. And there's a big difference between A and B. A tremendous big difference. A tremendous difference between A and B. Okay. So we talked about baseball, but now we have now we have the playoffs coming up, and the Mets and Braves are one game separates them. Next week, that comes to Atlanta for the final series, and the difference. By the way, did you know there's no tiebreaker game this year? They took that out of the rules because of the truncated schedule. It's now based on your head-to-head. So
actually, I have no problem with that.
And if it goes past that, then it's division wins.
I honestly have no issue with that. They played 162 games. I don't need to see, as much as I enjoy seeing another one.
Yeah,
because I've watched so much of it so far this year,
and
I don't mind it.
And I gotta tell you, I don't enjoy 162 games. I don't enjoy all these playoff teams. So I certainly don't need another game to play to get. Like, I don't need a wild card for a wild card game, right? I mean, it makes no sense to me. But they are – so the Mets come into – the Mets lost today, and Atlanta lost. And Atlanta lost today. It's right, exactly. So every time the Mets win, Atlanta wins, and every time the Mets lose, Atlanta loses. But the final series is next weekend here in Atlanta. And – the Yankees, who have
are you going to be wearing your Kevin McReynolds jersey?
No, I'm going to be wearing my Keith Hernandez jersey at the game. I believe I'm going to all three games. It looks like. So the Yankees, while not clinching, are in first place in the East, 5.5 up on Toronto. Pretty safe with 2 weeks left, but they are the Yankees. The Guardians have a 5-game. It's still so weird to say Guardians. The Guardians are 5 games up on the White Sox. Should we call them is it because it's a White Sox? Should we call them the Reds? Anyway, the Astros have clinched. They're 16 games up on the Mariners. The Mets, as I said before, 1 game separates them. The Cardinals are 8 games up on the Brewers, and the Dodgers have clinched. They are 21 games up on the Padres. But when you look at the wild card, this is where I was talking before. If you look at the West, the Braves have a 12-game. They got the first wild. The Braves and the Mets got the first wild card, whoever is not there. Behind them is San Diego with 1.5-game lead. Then the Phillies have the third wild card, but the Brewers are 2 behind them. So that would not – so head-to-head, right, would come into play there. In the American League, it's a 5-game lead. Baltimore has slowed their roll just a little bit in getting into the wild card. But props to I can't even remember the manager's name, but at 76 and 71, when we thought that the Orioles were a 100-loss team, good for them. I mean, it's nice to see the Orioles coming back and making something of themselves this year, and they certainly have a great future. Let's turn our attention to the NBA for a little bit. And news today that Robert Sarver is selling the team. I'm not shocked.
No.
I think there was a lot of internal pressure. I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Silver pushed a little bit for this. Would you? I mean, I'm not.
No, he got crushed on this by the
Silver
players.
got crushed. Yeah.
And perhaps because it was not as blatant as Donald Sterling. So I think he found it a little bit more difficult to come to that conclusion.
Well, it wasn't caught on audio tape. I mean, at the end of the day, when you hear it as opposed to read it, it's a lot different. And the thing with Donald Sterling was twofold. First of all, everybody knew it for 30 years. Everybody. And they kept making excuse after excuse after excuse. And now here we listen to it, right? And we hear him say these things as opposed to the report, which all you're doing is reading what the report said. So I think that there's a big difference when you see something or hear something as opposed to reading it. But he absolutely Silver got crushed based on the 1 year. But I don't remember. I think it was Hollinger on The Athletic said, well, that's good. He's got 1 year to force a sale. I mean,
and that may have been the thought process. Is this was the way to do it, as opposed to the outwardly you're out. And look, Robert Sarver is going to walk away with billions. No one's crying for him. So, but good riddance.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, I won't pretend that this doesn't happen. What he did, I believe happens in every single locker room. I think it happens on every single team.
Look, I mean, Anthony Edwards just got, for anti-gay comments, just got fined $40,000.
Right.
$40,000.
Right. I mean, which is chump change to him, but I mean, if you don't think Jerry Jones says things, right? If you don't think we know Dan Snyder does, I mean, right? And let me ask you this though: how does Dan Snyder, how is this again? How Roger Goodell gets remembered as opposed to Adam Silver? Adam Silver, yes, Adam Silver got crushed, no question. But if you play the long game, right, which I think now people are looking at it, playing the long game with Adam Silver, you give him the benefit of the doubt that this was behind the scenes and may have been something that was thought of, right? You don't think that way about Roger Goodell. You don't think that there's a long game here to force Dan Snyder out at all.
You think most people think Roger Goodell is just a stooge of the owners. I don't believe that people think that about Adam Silver.
Even though that's his job.
Yeah, that's his job. But I think with how it's initiated with the permanent banning of Sterling and the positive reinforcement of the Black Lives Matter movement within the NBA, not just the players, but by the league itself. I think he has a lot more credibility with the fans and players alike, even if they disagree with this decision. And again, we're never going to know if this 1 year was literally, okay, you now have a year to get the hell out, but we're not going to outwardly say that. We're never going to know. And based on Draymond Green's asking for a vote on it, I'm assuming the players don't know either.
Right. And I think it's more like, you're right. It's more likely that this was actually the way it was put forward. And the reason you won't know is because, quite frankly, it would lower the value of the teams, right?
Yes.
In the fact that if the commissioner could force you to sell, remember, the commissioner didn't even force Donald Sterling to sell. The commissioner forced Donald Sterling to leave. His wife is the one that sold the team. Donald Sterling didn't sell the team. He just got a banishment in perpetuity. It was his wife that decided to sell the team. Now, I'm sure there was under the table and a whole lot of negotiating that went along with that. But no commissioner can tell. I mean, remember back to Bartlett Giamatti and Faye Vincent, right? They didn't tell Mark Schott to sell the team. They just suspended Mark Schott and said, here you are, right? And that was – Mark Schott did a whole lot of bad, whole lot of bad.
She didn't like us very much.
Us being Jewish people, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. Not that too many people like us, but –
And she didn't like black people either.
Nope.
I mean, the comments that she made towards Dave Parker and Eric Davis, of which I will not repeat on this show, are heinous and awful. I mean, I think heinous and awful are synonyms, but
I was going to say you're kind of being redundant and repeating yourself.
Thank you very Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. The English major,
buddy and pal.
Yeah, the English major over here. Okay, so talk to me about Maryland playing Michigan this week. You guys got a shot? You're surprised I even know this is a game.
No, because it's been on Fox every 30 seconds being promoted.
That's the reason why I knew it was a game.
No, it's not going to. Look, we're 3-0. We were very lucky to beat SMU. Our receivers are probably the best in the Big Ten outside of Ohio State. We have no discipline. We had 15 penalties against SMU on Saturday. I think we get whipped.
You're looking at 50-0?
No, we'll score. Maybe something like 42-14.
So I was watching Syracuse finally win their game.
How did that feel?
Felt pretty damn good for them to win a game, but what I was looking at more so was UConn playing Michigan, right? So Michigan lost to Michigan beat UConn 59-0. And the week before, UConn lost to Syracuse, I think, hold on, I'm getting 48-14. So Seth, tell me if you remember another team that got 107 points in multiple back-to-back weeks. Lost. Scored against them. 107.
Randy Edsel is not walking back through that door.
No, but Jim Mora is.
I think we've seen it in the Big Ten when a team has played Ohio State and Michigan back to back. Maryland may have even had that where it's been something along those lines, but I can't give you an exact.
That's a bet. That is a lot.
By the way, I forgot to ask you last week.
Yeah.
So do we have Nebraska going to the Final Four? Or we have them going to the playoff now that it's expanded to 12?
As long as Scott Frost is the coach, there's hope.
Well, then that explains it.
I know Scott Frost got fired. Yes.
He walked away with $15 million.
For a year and a half. 2.5 years. No, he walked away.
No,
that was
4.5 years.
Right, but that was his severance, right?
That was his severance. If they waited until October 1st.
Right, it would have been 7.5. He owes
he'll be a coach again.
Absolutely, he'll be a coach again. Why would he not be a coach again? There are so many bad coaches out there. If Jim Mora can be a coach again and be at UConn, Frost is going to be a coach again. Well, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he went back to the University of Central Florida. At all. Obviously he won there. What other and Herm Edwards is not walking through that door anymore because he got fired. What other college coaches do you see this year maybe getting the can?
Carl Durrell at Colorado is going to be out. That team has fallen apart. Let me think here. I wouldn't Chip Kelly. We'll see. I think that would be kind of a surprise, but I wouldn't be shocked if it happened. I want to see what happens with Dino. You've been bad for a few years now.
Yeah, and if we we played Virginia while I'm on a plane this week, which is awesome because it's on ESPN on Friday night. Woohoo! I get to watch the game. The game starts at 7. I take off at 6:45. It is for Arizona, so I'll be on a 5-hour flight. Perfect. But no, I think Dino stays. I think.
Okay.
Look, especially if they beat Virginia, they'll be 4-0, and then they beat Wagner, they'll be 5-0. They only need to win 1 out of their last 6 games to make a bowl game. Now, granted, those 6 games are very difficult, but there is a win there, maybe at BC, or a win there against Pitt, or Pitt's a hard game, I understand, but there may be a win around there, and if you make a bowl game, they're not firing Bears.
No okay, chance. The two other ones, which are pretty obvious.
Yeah,
one is near you. Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech is a dead man walking.
Yeah. Okay.
They're they've been a horrendous the last, and the one who's going to be fired. I'm surprised he's still there is Brian Harsin at Auburn, which may have been one of the worst hires ever, and hence why their AD is out. He will be gone by the end of the year.
Okay, so we got about 5 minutes left. Let me ask you this. Do the Giants go 3-0 this week?
No.
Do they get crushed on Monday Night Football?
No. But they'll lose.
They'll lose.
They'll lose. They're not that good.
Neither is Dallas with Cooper Rush. So,
Dallas with Cooper Rush beat Cincinnati.
Yeah, and hopefully the Jets will beat Cincinnati with Joe Flacco.
I'm not holding my breath on it.
Neither am I.
I think Cincy's going to beat you by 8,420,000,000 points.
Not if we're down 13 with a minute left. We got.
Well, no, then they won't win by 8 zillion.
We got the game just where we want them.
There you go. It's funny because Nick Chubb did the exact right thing a year ago and then caught grief from it. And then, look, Cleveland blew the game.
Absolutely.
Great job by you guys. Garrett Wilson, my goodness.
Great job by Joe Willie Flacco. Joe Willie.
Joe Willie.
Joe Willie.
I thought Joe Willie went to Alabama, not to Delaware.
It does not matter. He's Joe Willie this year. Joe Willie Flacco. But yeah, absolutely. Look, I got your Trevor Lawrence card somewhere around here.
Along with my John Tavares bobblehead?
No, that went in the garbage. Sorry, dude. That did not make the move. But so yeah, I mean, look, this week we got a lot going on with Aaron Judge potentially setting the home run record for the American League. I think he'll do it because somebody's going to pitch to him at some point. Probably it'll be Phil Nevin if I have to guess. The Royals fired Drayton Moore about 10 minutes ago, which is surprising to me.
He built a hell of a team in Kansas City.
Yeah.
He had a 5-year terrible run, a 5-year great run, and a 5-year terrible run.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is,
Kansas City.
I mean, how do you really deal with that, right? And rest in peace to Maury Wills, who, if nothing, look, Maury Wills is not a Hall of Famer. He's probably not even in the Hall of Very Good. He was just he was a good player, not a great player. But he changed the game. Maury Wills is one of those guys that you could look at and say, he changed the game. The first guy to steal over 100 bases, 102, when stolen bases were not a thing. Like, nobody stole bases before Maury Wills. I think the record was Ty Cobb, which was like 75 in like 1913 or something like that. And then
I want to say a guy named Billy Hamilton. Not the Billy Hamilton who played for Cincy a couple years ago.
No. Billy Hamilton had the all-time record, but Ty Cobb had the most in a year. He definitely had the most in a year. So Ty Cobb stole 892 bases, which is also the record until Lou Brock. And then Ricky Henderson just obliterated it, right?
And now the sad part is you're back to there are no stolen bases.
Well, I would think
who's leading the league in stolen bases?
But next year will be different, supposedly. You know why? You can only throw over
shift.
You can only throw over twice. So if Trey Turner gets thrown over twice, you don't think he's stealing on the next pitch?
Yeah, it's going to be weird because if you throw over twice, what's to stop you from taking literally taking a 7? I don't know the exact rule yet. There's got to be something that can be done because you can't. So you could literally take a 60-foot step off.
Take a pitch out. I guess that's what you do. No, it won't.
I mean, because literally you can, after the second one, you can be 30 feet off before he starts his windup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which will lower the amount of throwovers to start with, right? You'll throw over once. You won't throw over twice. You'll only throw over once because you want to hold that throw over just in case. So I think Cobb actually stole 96 bases. That was the record until Maury Wills did 102. And then
I think you should also give a shout out. Did you read the article about Wynton Bernard on The Athletic?
Who?
Google Wynton Bernard.
Okay.
He was a 31-year-old rookie who was in the minors for 10 years who just got up to. What a good story.
Yeah, he actually called his mom when he got this was on Twitter when he got called up where he was crying.
This was a couple of weeks ago. But the article came out on The Athletic about the whole thing yesterday.
I'll take a look.
Great.
I'll take a look. But this is the time, right, where you get those career minor leaguers that get the shot. And remember, part of the shot is the minute you get called up from the minor leagues and you play one game, you get lifetime health insurance from the MLBPA. So, I mean, if you're on the roster for 45 days, you get a pension. I mean, these are the days that actually matter to some of these guys that are up.
These are the days we remember.
These are the days. So, anyway, next week we'll talk more about the days. For Seth Kamens, I'm Sean Palmer, Seth and Sean Sports. This is a great show, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.
I got to turn this thing off.